there's a sense that I think all of us get, that most men these days are lost. They feel lost, like they don't know why they're here or what role they're here to play, or, their purpose in life. And it's not a product of us being lazy, and it's not a product of us not having ambition. Most of us have more ambition than we know what to do with. You can see just how popular hustle culture is with young men these days to see that. So if it's not a lack of ambition, if it's not a lack of drive, then what is it? Well, I think it's something that we've all been robbed of. As long as humans have been on this earth, men have had rites of passage to go through that would take them from adolescence into manhood. And we don't have that anymore. And I think that that's at the root of a lot of the challenges that we face as individuals, as men, but also societally. And I'd argue that a lot of the reasons why we have the challenges we have in society today, whether it's, globally or nationally, is because we don't have these rites of passage anymore. We don't have a way of communicating to young men, this is the right way of owning your masculinity in a way that's generative, positive, and gives back to the community that you're a part of. The reason why this is top of mind for me today is because yesterday my friend and I were having a conversation about how both of us craved through our adolescence and into our 20s and even our 30s a mentor, some type of mentor relationship with a masculine figure in our life who could guide us or help us feel like we were going in the right direction and answer questions for us that we had just generally about the way to be a man, to show up in the world as a man, and someone who we could hold as an example to be as a man. My father, I love my father, and he's still in my life, and I'm grateful for everything that he's done for myself and for my brothers and for our family. But growing up, he wasn't really like a man's man, right? He wasn't the stereotypical father figure. So I never really got that handoff of manhood from him to me, right? Where he taught me how to be a man, so to speak. I kind of just had to figure it out for myself. And to be honest with you, I don't think I ever did. I think I'm closer to that today than I ever have been, but I still feel like there's like a lot of boyish psychology or trappings of adolescence that I have to figure out how to let go of. And I think that's a consequence of not really having a rite of passage the way that adolescent males have had for thousands and thousands of years up until very, very recently. I mean, there are still places in the world where they have these rites of passage, and it's looked upon as one of the most important pillars of the society that these rituals are a part of. My friend was saying something very similar. He had a father in his life. Unfortunately, his father died when he was 18 or 19, but he didn't provide that rite of passage. He didn't help my friend transition from being a young man, a young boy, into adolescence, through adolescence, and into the ownership of what it means to be a man. I've been going through a lot of exercises recently to try to get clear on, what I hold as important in my own life, what I want to learn more about, what I want to explore more about, and how I want to bring that exploration to this channel. And rite of passage and helping men figure out just how the hell to show up in 2025 as a man is kind of at the tip of the spear for this, because I really do think that this is the biggest challenge that we as society face and as men face, because without a clear demarcation between boyhood and manhood, you're left with these adults masquerading as men who really are just boys. So if you look around the world, in all cultures, historically, there was always a transition, a rite of passage for a young man to be a man. And while the rites of passage were different from culture to culture, there were a few key points that pretty well were ubiquitous across all of them. So the first thing that shows up over and over again is the tearing away from the mother. I think it was Robert Bly's Iron John, that book. He talks about it. It could have been that, or it could have been From Boys to Men. I'm not sure. Either of those books are fantastic books, and they both talk about this subject in great detail. But there's an example given in one of those books, I can't remember which one, where there was a tribe in Africa, and when the boys are ready to transition, to go through this rite of passage, the men would go out into the woods and they'd dress up as, monsters or demons, and they'd paint their bodies and whatnot, put on masks. And then in the middle of the night, they'd come into the town and they would take these boys. The mothers they were participating in this as well. So they would act like they were trying to protect the boys from these demons, from these, these monsters that were coming into town to take the boys away from their family, from their tribe. And the moms would cry and wail and they'd try to hold on to their kids. And the men, or the demons in this case, would grab the boys and they'd pull at them and pull at them and pull at them. And the moms would act as though they were trying to keep the kids with them. But ultimately, of course, they would let go of the kid. And the demon would take them out into the woods. And what that was meant to signify was that your mom can't protect you anymore. The feminine energy of your mother has protected you up until this point. She nursed you. She made sure that you were warm, that you had a roof over your head. But that time is gone now. She can no longer protect you. So it was a psychological separation from that protection from the mother. Another thing that comes up over and over and over and again in these rites of passage is some type of wounding, whether it's a laceration. I think there's another example where they knock out one of the teeth. There's a ceremony where the boy has to jump over a bull, which is obviously a very dangerous feat to do. My understanding of this is that it's meant to remind you of your mortality, the letting of blood, the seeing of an open wound, the defying or the challenging of death is meant to bring into your psyche, oh, I am a mortal man and I could die. And in fact, and I'm pretty sure that a few boys every now and then actually did die during these ceremonies. It was meant to anchor you back into your own mortality, to realize that you are not invincible and that your life on this earth is finite. Upon returning, these boys had a new psychology, a new lens with which to look at the world, and a new ownership of their masculinity. And it was one that was not self-serving, which would have been the case up until this point. You think about your average adolescent, and they're very self-centered. And I don't mean that as a pejorative. I just mean, hey, the person who matters the most in their life is them, right? They're the center of their universe. If you've ever met a 14-year-old, that pretty well goes without saying. But this rite of passage is meant to help you sever that, to help you see that there is more to this world and there's more to serve than just yourself. And when you come back with the men after the ceremony, you realize the new role that you have to play as a generative man to serve your community. And we don't have that anymore. Most men that I meet want to do something more with their life than, just show up to work Monday through Friday and maybe have a few beers over the weekend. The reason why I think it's so challenging these days, if you think back to a tribe that sort of rite of passage would have been a part of, a tribe like that, let's say, had 140 people. If you are in a tribe of 140 people, first of all, you know everybody in the tribe by face, by name. And the second thing is you know exactly what your role is in that tribe. Maybe you're a hunter. Maybe you're really good at building dwellings. Maybe you're really good at fixing things. Whatever it is, like, you have a specific role to play in that group. And there's reciprocity there, right? Like, you contribute your role and you're able to enjoy the work that the other people in your tribe, who they have their own roles, they're contributing to the tribe as well. So I know my role, I know your role, and we can see the value that we're contributing collectively to this. For men specifically, I think that that's just in our DNA, that we are supposed to have a role like that. And we're supposed to feel like we're seen as someone valuably contributing to our community or to our tribe. And if you fast forward to today, most people have a 9 to 5, or they clock in and they clock out. And there isn't really any deep meaning to a lot of the jobs, a lot of the work that we do anymore. And we certainly don't know most people by name, and we certainly don't feel like we're recognized for the value that we're contributing. In the last company that I worked for, there were 1,500 of us, I think, and I was just another face. And everybody else was just another face to me. There were a few people that I knew pretty well, but other than that, the organization itself was massive. And the work that we were doing was like, I guess you could argue that it was important, but realistically, it wasn't like if we just didn't open our doors the next day, the world wouldn't have ended. It wasn't very impactful. And I really do think that we need to feel like our work is impactful. For hundreds of thousands of years, that was ingrained in our DNA. If I'm not contributing value to the group, to the tribe, then I'm going to be cast out of the tribe. And to be cast out of the tribe is death, certain death. So I need to feel like I'm actively contributing to the tribe, and that the value, the contributions that I'm making are seen and recognized by those in the tribe, so that I feel the safety of being part of that community. That lack of validation from the work that we do is one of the reasons why well, the world just seems so crazy right now. This is a whole nother video, I think, but identity politics or the ideologies in general, I think it's a product of people not having that intrinsic identity from what they do, right? If I'm in that tribe of 140 people and I'm the warrior, or I'm the hunter, or I'm the hut builder, or whatever, like that's my identity. I don't have to search for that identity. I know what it is. To have that identity is security. And because that need is so deep, because that need is so intense, and we don't have any real way of fulfilling it, people latch on to ideologies. People latch on to identities that are self-created. Psychologically, I think what's going on is they're saying, I'm not seen as something of importance to this. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to create an identity, or I'm going to find a group of people who have some sort of cohesive ideology, and I'm going to latch onto it because that is going to help me feel this deep sense of fear that I have no reason to be here. I have no meaningful purpose that I contribute to the larger community. When I found men's work, this helped me organize my thoughts a little bit better around what purpose is, because up until that point, I don't even know if I thought much about that word purpose, but the feelings of needing to do something large to make a impact, I think that came from what I now realize is my deep longing for purpose. And how I set out about it was, I need a high-paying job. I need a job with a lot of power. I need a job with a lot of influence. I need to be seen and recognized as a man who, is a mover and a shaker in this world. And through men's work, I realized that that's not the case at all, right? Like that's a very vapid, very surface level approach to fulfilling one's purpose. And in fact, if you do that, I would argue that if you achieve the apex of that vision that you have of, whatever it is, maybe a high-powered lawyer or a politician or the CEO of a company or what have you, and you're doing it to fill that void of needed purpose, without exploring why that void exists in the first place, I think you'll get there and it'll be empty. It'll leave you emptier than when you set off to fill that void. Because after having, sat in men's circles and reading some of the books and just learning more about what it is to be a man, and especially a man in the 21st century, that purpose can be fulfilled with things that are much, much more readily achieved than just becoming, the CEO of a massive company. Because purpose is just contribution. Purpose is finding what gifts you have and then having the courage to offer those gifts back to the community that you're a part of, but also being humble enough to realize that maybe you're not meant to be a CEO of a massive company. Maybe your true purpose is to be an incredible father. The job is just a way for you to fulfill your larger purpose of being that incredible father to your children. So it doesn't have to be grandiose, but it does have to be fulfilling in a way that's much, much deeper than just a job title. The interesting thing I think about finding your purpose as a man is that usually it comes from a place of wounding as a child. And I hate to use that overused word, which is trauma, but usually your childhood trauma is what directs your pursuit for purpose in the future. At least that's what I've found to be the case in my life and the lives of other men that I've talked to about this. The deep pull towards purpose that I have now is influenced by my lack of that masculine presence when I was younger. I want to explore my own sense of being a man because I never had the guidance that I really craved when I was younger. And I want to do that while also creating a space for other men to do the same, and especially younger men who are feeling the way that I felt when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, trying to figure out where the hell do I fit and how do I figure all this stuff out. That was my challenge as a young man, and it now pulls me towards what I feel is my next layer of purpose, which is to offer and be in service of myself, of course, but also other men. So if we don't really have any generative rites of passage anymore in contemporary society, what are we supposed to do about this? Especially if we've aged out of adolescence. I think one of the best tools for this is joining a men's circle, joining a men's group, because a lot of the exercises and a lot of what goes on in those groups is similar. It's like an analog to the old rites of passage. Now, the interesting thing, I think, is that most of the guys who end up in men's circles, if you asked, I had a quote up from Absent Fathers, Lost Sons, another great book. And the author of the book was in a men's circle and asked all the men in that circle who there felt like a man, and none of them raised their hand. So I think that's something that's quite interesting about men's circles, is it tends to draw men who are on a path of self-development, but still feel like that title of man that they have owned up to their own masculinity is not there yet. But collectively, I think that's when it starts to work, is because it's not that any one person in the group is the leader of that group. It's that together you're all supporting each other through very similar but ultimately uniquely different pursuit of growth towards being the best version of a man that you can be. It's getting physical by doing work, going out into the woods, doing things that are uncomfortable, like doing cold plunges or jumping in a cold river, doing things that are physically painful, like working out as a group, challenging one another to be your best, and then complementing that with a lot of emotional work as well, creating a group where men feel safe around one another to explore the depths of things that they don't want to talk about, the ugly things about the thoughts and emotions that men experience on a day-to-day basis, but ever think about sharing with other people. I think the balance of those two things in a men's group is the closest thing that we can get to helping men through this process of owning up and becoming the best man that they can. You know, the closest thing to a modern day rite of passage, I think, is stepping foot into a men's circle and committing yourself to being as vulnerable and open so that you can grow. It's not easy, but it's very worthwhile. It's probably the best thing that I've ever done for myself is join a men's group. Or if you do go on this pursuit of becoming the best man that you can be, and you feel like you're able to better navigate the world because you understand how you fit into it a little bit more, you're getting closer to your deep sense of purpose, and you're doing your best to live it every day. If you feel like you're going down that path with some level of success, I think just as important as finding that path and going down it, once you realize you found it and you're going down it, to turn around and look for men that you can help become part of somebody else's rite of passage. I think that's the only way that we can really get out of this mess, is to, help lift each other up and help guide each other through this absolute quagmire that is what it means to be a modern day man. I'm going to be honest, this video was really difficult for me to make because I'm having a really difficult time tonight getting my words out. I'll have a lot more thinking to do on this, and I'm going to try maybe in the future to make another video on this topic that's a little bit more articulate and better thought out. But it was, it's interesting to try to tackle these subjects on my own rather than having somebody else to talk to. It helps me see where I am in my own sense of understanding of all this stuff. Tomorrow morning I'm going to get up early and I'm going to go fishing, and I hope to bring you guys along with me by taking the camera. I'm going to go fishing for some trout. I really wanted to go steelheading this weekend, but we haven't had any rain for a few weeks, so the rivers are really low and clear, and that's pretty well the last time you want to try to go out and get a steelhead. So we have some rain in the forecast next week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I'm going to head up to a really secret river that I know about that I can't wait to film some videos at, and hopefully get a couple steelhead. It's a beautiful place. We're way out in the middle of the woods that nobody really goes to, nobody really knows about other than me. So I hope to take my motorcycle out there and take you guys along with me. Anyhow, thanks for joining me on today's rambling. I hope that you got something out of it. I would love to hear from you where you're at in this journey. If you've joined a men's circle, if you've had any experience with men's work, if there are any books that you've read on this subject, I just want to hear from you. That's what this channel is for me, is I want to hear from other people what their experience has been like. And I want to have a conversation so that I'm not just talking to myself. All right. Until next video, take care. Bye.